When it comes to horror movies, I will be the last person you catch standing in line to see one. Since I was a kid, I have never liked the feeling of being scared. I guess that stems back to my mom forcing me to watch Poltergeist or the Blair Witch Project. Or better yet, witnessing the Passion of the Christ at a ripe 9 years old. Maybe it's a control thing and I can't control jump scares, yet as I have grown up, I have opened my eyes to the genre and found a whole library of movies that I never knew existed. Yes, I still hate jump scares, but now I can count cold-blooded thrillers and eerie dramas as some of my favorite horror flicks. I have written and rewritten this video countless times. Last time I let my mom come and review it and edit it, it was only going to be a top 10 list, but as I sat recording this, I realized how many I forgot to add. So I've decided to make this a top 20. Sorry, Mom. But before I jump in, I want to make a disclaimer that everything listed here is my own opinion. Like I said before, I don't like being scared, so don't expect to see one of your favorites because I haven't seen everything. So let me just list some of my honorable mentions real quick. Some guilty pleasures of mine that I have watched since I was a kid are Eight-Legged Freaks and Jeepers Creepers 2. I also love the reboot of It. I enjoyed Eraserhead, The Grotesque, The Fly, the pandemic thriller It Comes at Night, my first horror movie I saw in theaters, A Quiet Place, and Robert Eggers' first feature, The Witch. And I also shouldn't go without mentioning Titan and its horrific visuals. I will never forget that night. Now let's get to it. I understand this is a lot of people's favorites, but it's not mine. I think it's great. This is one of the horror movies that I personally chose to watch on my own accord years ago. Anything involving Jordan Peele, I will watch, and I am so happy he got his recognition with this movie. Also, I want to shout out Us because I loved that, and me and Chris watched that, and we jumped out of our seats at that last sequence. For years, I've seen that infamous ending of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but never got the chance to see it in its entirety. But once I got the chance, it was everything I had hoped it would be. It's a great movie from the late 70s. Woo! The late 70s. I love some self-aware movies, and The Cabin in the Woods is just that. The Cabin in the Woods is a great movie because it understands what is funny and interesting about horror. It's a great take on a premise that fans have seen so many times before, and it is executed quite well. Foreboding, unnerving, and absolutely absorbing, there's a silent, eerie poeticism to Eyes Without a Face that effectively crawls under your skin. This is an impressively orchestrated effort of unconventional horror that grips you with a dreadful sadness that's entirely unexpected. It is by far one of the best things I've watched on Criterion Channel. Possessor is a sleekly built science fiction psychological horror written and directed by Brandon Cronenberg. The chilliness and slow burn might not be for everybody, but you'll be hard-pressed to find a comparable film. This stands on its own as a brilliant sci-fi horror. Some of you might be pissed that this is even this high on my list, but what did I say? This is my opinion. Also, don't expect to see The Shining or Halloween on this list, but Hereditary completely deserves its praise. It is beautifully shot and told, but I have only seen it once. With that being said, it still makes my list because it is one of the best made films of the past decade, and you notice it from the opening shot. It Follows is deserving of all the praise it has been getting, if you ask me. It is creative, original, and genuinely freaked me out a couple of times. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. It Follows is an excellent, quite intense, and highly enjoyable little horror flick with great cinematography and a fantastic score to set the mood just right. There is not much to say that hasn't already been said. Once watched, it is not as much of a horror as you think, but the scenes that follow through the course of the film are just chilling. It's a trippy ride that I love every time I go back and rewatch. Check out my video on it if you'd like to hear more. Ari Aster makes nothing short of a masterpiece in his second feature film. A lot of people who saw Hereditary don't consider this as great, but it is truly something that I think I'll never forget. In contrast to his first film, Hereditary, this film is very bright and includes some comedic levity, which certainly doesn't go awry between the cruel acts of ritualistic horror that are portrayed on the screen. When the characters arrive in Sweden, we are literally taken to a different world. On the surface, it appears to be an idyllic paradise that most people only dream of. If you look deeper, there is clearly something off. The opening sequence where Florence Pugh is just crying is so fucking good, and that is why it's pushed farther on my list. The Wolf of Snow Hollow was my favorite movie of 2020, and come on, werewolves are my shit. The Wolf of Snow Hollow delivers itself as an easy-to-watch dark comedy. It looks at paranoia and the pressure of life in a very accessible way. Jim Cummings has recently been one of my favorite directors to watch, and by the time this video is dropped, I will have seen his new film, The Beta Test, and possibly have met him. So look out for that video soon, because I'll drop it. Known unofficially as the greatest horror movie of all time, I waited years to watch The Exorcist. When I finally did a binge of horror movies during the pandemic, my mom recommended I see this film, and I was shocked not only at how well it held up, but also how good of a movie it actually is. The Exorcist remains one of the greatest achievements of the horror genre. The things they were able to accomplish with sound mixing at the time have yet to be outdone. The makeup department deserves a heap of credit, and the effects still creep me out. Acting is something that typically gets sacrificed in most horror movies, but this is one exception where every actor delivers a quality performance. William Friedkin did a wonderful job of maintaining tension, even in scenes that were strictly dialogue. His subtle zoom-ins and outs are just enough to make you feel uneasy during otherwise tranquil scenes. Funny Games is a hard watch. I have only seen the original film, and it was an intriguing concept to me, so when I finally got to watch it, I was not expecting this to be much more than a well-crafted home invasion thriller. But when Paul turned and winked at the camera, I did a double take and thought, did he just wink at me? Safe to say I wasn't expecting this much tangling with the genre and fourth wall breaking, but it was right up my alley. The most recent horror movie I've seen, I confess that I saw this after I made this list, so I had to go back and squeeze it in. Scream is everything I love about movies. A self-aware slasher flick that deconstructs conventional horror movie tropes with smart humor as well as dreadful suspense. It's also a meta-commentary on the sensationalism of violence in the media. It holds up extremely well, and I wish I saw it sooner. Now I need to binge the films before the newest addition to the franchise. Possession is a film tightly twisted into a knot of illogic. It makes no sense and is unanswered and unexplained. It's a film where no one acts as expected. People are monsters, monsters are gods, the unlikely is probable, the probable is impossible. No analysis can do Possession justice. It is a film of fear presented with frayed storylines barely sewn together. A white elephant film for my friend James, his curiosity and drive to see Possession is what ultimately led me to watch it. And if you have not seen this, I hope this leads you to watch it. Not considered a horror, but more of a drama/comedy/thriller, American Psycho is one of my favorite films to watch year after year. American Psycho is an utter masterpiece of satire and social commentary backed by an outrageous performance by Christian Bale. This film would be nothing without Bale, who brings a cosmic force of ferocity to the screen, completely unhinged, knowing so, and loving every minute. American Psycho is also a brilliant and stunning discussion on the fine line between a sane and insane individual. Viewed through Mary Marone's voyeuristic lens, it seems that every single one of Patrick Bateman's coworkers are just as self-centered and lifeless as our main character. And that's why this satirical masterwork is so compelling and funny. This film is meticulously crafted, well thought out, every moment clearly planned and organized. That is what's so great about it. It's easy to look and say, this shit is totally crazy, which it is. but the director engineered every shot and every detail to look completely nuts. There's not much else to say except it is a much needed experience that every film lover should have. A recent thriller that ultimately blew me away, The Lighthouse is not only a phenomenal psychological horror film, but a masterpiece of a film. Beautifully filmed in a foreboding black and white and some old-fashioned boxy aspect ratio, you're suddenly transported right there to the same lighthouse rock. The foghorn that drifts in and out of the background is the most ominous sound you've ever heard. This cast of two, the claustrophobic setting, the foreboding, it all places you right inside the story. If you just surrender to Robert Eggers and his vision, you will be in for a rare cinematic experience. Jumping on my radar years ago and finally watching it last year, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the definition of a horror movie itself. A film of countless imitators, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre still feels remarkably unique, an unhinged assault on an unsuspecting audience. Even the final girl trope, so deeply ingrained in future horror films, took on a symbolic aspect in later films. The virgin surviving because she is unsullied, but Sally doesn't survive because she is pure, she survives by chance. Blood-soaked, laughing hysterically, a brilliant film's final act of cruelty. Never being a film I was scared to watch, An American Werewolf in London is one of the only horror films I have continuously watched over the years. Since I was a kid dressing up as a werewolf for countless Halloweens, I have never not loved the aspect of a man turning into a beast at night. There are few films like An American Werewolf in London. Very few that feature such a bizarre comedic mix of tones and textures, yet feel as cohesive, satisfying, and surprising as this one. This is an homage to one of the horror's most classic and most mistreated creatures. There are just not that many great werewolf films out there, which probably has a lot to do with the fact that the mythology doesn't give that much room for creativity. And yet, this film manages to do just that. It takes the classic tale of the werewolf and turns it upside down and injects it with an irresistible dose of morbid humor.
Help me! Please! Help me! Help
A chill-inducing, hair-rising, brain-splattering, and blisteringly paranoid horror film of chivalry, delights, and terrifying concepts. The creature effects are second to none in their horrific detail, raising every stake of the human drama and slowly escalating the oppressive and icy atmosphere. John Carpenter's The Thing is one of my favorite films of all time. I say that a lot. It's a film that I regularly come back to a couple times a year, and I'm constantly blown away by it. Each and every viewing is like a new experience. There's always something new to discover or different characters that retain more of my focus as I relentlessly try to track every movement The Thing makes. Every wry smile or sideways glance evokes new clues and hidden tension. Absolutely brilliant in every way. Possibly the greatest snow set horror film ever made. Sublime atmosphere, excellent story, beautiful cinematography, expert direction, phenomenal practical effects, effective lighting, amazing cast, the creeptastic score. This makes The Thing my favorite horror movie of all time. Tune in every Friday for new movie videos. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment down below what other movies you would like me to do videos on. Thank you, Mom, for editing the scripts for my movie essays. I appreciate you. Till next time, thanks for watching. Catch you on the flip side.